I'm Sophia A. Jackson, and I'm the editor and founder of Afridiziak Theatre News. And today I am joined by Odimba. Would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Hi, I'm Chinonyerem. My writing name is Chinonyerem, which is my full Nigerian name. I have been a writer on and off for about 18 years, but I'm also now artistic director and CEO of Theatre Hunsi, which is the UK's leading British African heritage theatre company.
Thank you. So I'm really excited about your new play, Black Love, which is a musical and you're currently on tour. Could you give us some background about what inspired you to write this?
Wow, I mean, you know what? It's only when you start making a piece of work that you realise all the things that come together in the space that is your imagination to make something like that happen. So I think initially the play was inspired by the fact that I have 3 brothers and a sister, and even though I don't see them that often now, we had such a particular relationship growing up, and I realized that I never see that. I never see familial Black love. Mm-hmm. And it was something that I was kind of interested in when I got this commission, but also then, I don't know if you remember all the stuff happened around the Black family that was shown in the Sainsbury's advert.
Yeah, there's a big furore about it.
Yeah. And I thought, I mean, what is that? Like, why is it controversial for a country like ours to even imagine that there are happy, carefree, joyful Black families that exist? And why is that so offensive?
It was probably offensive because people are not used to seeing it. So it's like, how dare you veer away from the stereotype of what I think Black families are about? Not cool.
No, and that's really what inspired this play initially. Was that I wanted to just put that on stage and to go, this is real, and this is something there's a whole community of people, there's millions and millions of people experiencing this thing, and you don't get to share it with us because you don't seem interested that it exists.
Yeah.
And really that's where it started. I'd always wanted to write a musical. I didn't think I could, to be totally honest. I thought that like the stuff that I like to write is quite weird anyway, and adding musical to that was just not, I was like, no one's going to buy it. Like, I've just convinced them to buy my fairy tales and my magic realism. They're not going to buy all that packaged as a musical. And but I really wanted to write a musical. I'd grown up on Bollywood films. I think lots of West Africans in my generation actually are really familiar with the Bollywood film as a musical. So I hadn't grown up on Mary Poppins or any of that stuff. I just knew these like highly dramatic, very like hyper real romantic stories.
Yeah.
You know, the ones I really like. I just love it. And like, I love everything about them, and the way they like, when there's something really dramatic happens, the music's just like so intense, or anyway. So I kind of always had that in my head. But again, it seems to be at odds with the Western idea of what musicals were.
Well, yeah, so my next question was, how did you go from writing the script and then fusing the music together with the script to make it into a musical? Like, what is the process for that?
I suppose my approach has always been, there are some rules of writing musicals that I've definitely had to follow. Like, there's some things, it's like, you know, every musical moment should be pushing the story along, like you would expect any other scene
Yeah.
You know, you come out, you go into a scene, you come out of the scene and something in that story has changed, or
Yeah.
a character has changed, or the action has been moved along.
Yeah.
So that's no different when you write a musical. You have to
Okay.
still, the music still has to do that job, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that was my approach. I wrote the story that I wanted to write, and then there were some moments that I knew would be musical. And so I wrote them like real lyrics, and then there were other moments that I wasn't sure. So that was the stuff that I would kind of go back to the musical director and the composer Ben and Max Ringham and say, what do you think? Do you think we could turn this into a song? So that was how it happened. But you sort of have to approach it like any other story.
Yeah.
You know, each scene has got to do its job. Each moment's got,
Right.
each character doesn't, you know, the hardest thing, I was just reading a Twitter thread, the hardest thing is that you've got to convince people in this world, people just randomly break out into song. And obviously, I know that because I regularly randomly break out into song in my car or in the, you know. But you have to convince a lot of other people that that's just the way it is, you know? And yeah, so it's story doesn't change. What you have to do as a storyteller doesn't change when you're writing a musical.
Okay.
In the writing of it, you're much more engineering where the high moments, because that's where music really lends itself. That's where song really lends itself, when you're getting to those high emotional states.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I kind of approached it. It's I think what's interesting when people watch it, you'll see the things that have been turned into song, that you're going to go, oh well, that's a really like interesting choice. But a part of that is going, what should music be doing for us as an audience, not to us, because I think sometimes musicals are used so that we get an emotion, but I think in this play it's about what happens when a character feels so deeply they can hardly speak.
Oh, okay. So you mentioned that you opened at Belgrade Theatre, didn't you? So how was it received in Coventry?
It's like the reception to it has just been so brilliant and so heartwarming, because it is, all I'll say is, not like any other musical that you've probably ever seen.
Okay.
And there are elements to the show that really take an audience a minute. Really? Okay. Is what I'll say. Right. They start early enough that I'm trying not to give anything away.
Yeah.
But there's certainly some songs that will an audience kind of go, okay. But audiences in Coventry have been so generous. They've been like really enthusiastic. You know, we've had people audibly responding to what's happening on stage. Yeah. We've had, you know, spontaneous clapping after some of the songs. It's like, yeah, I mean, I've been saying to everyone on the team, I'm really glad we opened in Coventry. I'm really pleased that we opened in Coventry. Like, there is a Black community there that probably need to be served with more stories like that. And a very curious theatre community that just seem to love the form of the play. It's challenge, like, I think it wouldn't be fair for me to say this play isn't going to leave you in your feelings in one way or another. Okay. You know, but hopefully it will leave you in your feelings in a way that is about thinking about what the world looks like around you a bit more. But also, like, some of those songs are extremely catchy. Like, I've had a lot of people ask me for the CD after.
I was going to say, is there a soundtrack or? What happens
I mean,
to music now after the show?
yeah, it's so hard not to think about it because, I mean, firstly, the collaboration between myself and Ben and Max Ringham on the music. So I wrote the lyrics and they did all the music, and we had a musical director called Candida who was working with the actors on the songs and their vocals and all of that. And that teamwork has just been incredible. Like, I think particularly Ben, because he knew me, he knew what my musical taste was.
Okay.
So it felt really shorthand. Like, do you know what I mean? I could say something, and you know, we would have like a 10-minute conversation about Mary J. Blige, or like, do you know what I mean? Or Gladys Knight, and I knew that what he was getting from that conversation was exactly how I wanted a tune to start, or how big a tune was, or you know, whatever it was. So it's made it very, very easy when you're working with good collaborators, because the songs are kind of like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm really proud of them. I'm like, so we've been talking about it. We've been talking about whether we do produce something out of them, because they're high quality. I mean, there's no doubt they're like very high quality songs, and it feels like a shame not to share them.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a really positive experience. So does that mean that you'd write another musical?
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm like itching, you know, like I just never thought I'd say it, because I don't know, as an artist, you evolve, and you're not just evolving within yourself, you're evolving within the context of the thing that you're doing. And so I guess when I started writing, I was quite stubborn about the fact that I didn't want to write frivolous stuff. I didn't want to write stuff that was like, and then you forget about it by the time you get on the bus home.
Yeah.
I wanted to write stuff that really affected people, even if it was just one person. I wanted it to have an effect on people.
Yeah.
And so I think in some ways I took that very seriously for a long time. And the stories I wanted to tell and the ways I wanted to tell them just got darker and weirder. Like it just got like, and then, but I think discovering how music plays into that, because music is my first love. Before theatre was music. And suddenly now finding that space in the work for the music, it's done something. Like the stuff I want to write about hasn't changed. The way I want to tell it, as hopefully you'll see in this show, is still as mad, if you like, but now music is in there and there's something else happening, and I'm loving that. I'm like really loving that. So now, I've got a list of things I'd like to write a musical about. Like it just goes on.
Well, hopefully you'll inspire other Black playwrights to venture into making their own musicals as well. I think it's just nice to see such diversity on the stage as well, just not just Black trauma. So I think that's really exciting. So you've been to Belgrade. I know you're coming to London, which is where I'll be watching it. Can you tell us about some of the other places that you're going to be touring?
Yeah, so next stop for the show is Biker in Newcastle.
Okay.
And then, like you say, we come to Brixton, Slade Gardens from the 19th of August to the 29th. And then after that, there's Salford. There's Cast in Doncaster. There's, Bournemouth and Poole. There's the tour is extensive, and Ramsgate.
Oh, cool.
yeah, so we're doing a substantial tour.
Yeah.
And I think the whole point of Roundabout and why Paynes Plough have the Roundabout is that it sits in spaces and areas that are lesser served by culture and theatre. And so again, it's not just that people are buying tickets and seeing the work, it's that people, even in Coventry, we've been in Wood End, which is an area about 12 to 15 minutes outside the centre.
Right, okay.
And that community is really diverse. And yes, probably don't get a chance to see cultural offerings or theatre, or feels like even something like Belgrade might be too far a step for them.
Right.
But to be able to have this on your doorstep, we've had kids like running into the tent to see what's happening, because we've had people just turning up because they're hearing the music. We were right next to a football pitch, so we had these young footballers going, wow, what's that song, and like peeking in. So in all of these areas, we are going to those places. We're going to places that people don't maybe usually think, oh, what's happening in theatre, and that feels, particularly for this story, feels really important.
Was there any locations that you're apprehensive about going to?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we started this, I was very apprehensive for the actors. Like, obviously, they have to go on stage and tell this story night after night, and some of those we had discussions about it in the rehearsal room, because I'm co-directing the show as well, and we had loads of discussions about it. And historically, there's been a problem with actors going into outside of certain like bigger cities, metropolitan areas. That's just a thing,
right? Okay.
But when you're taking a show like this and you're not part of a big company, then actually you can feel more exposed. Do you know what I mean? And so we've been doing a lot of work. We had a drama therapist working with us on the show right from the start. So from the start of rehearsal, she started talking to the cast, she started talking to us as directors. She's been there throughout the process for us to lean on and to get support from. And part of her conversations have been about what's going to happen for the actors on the road handling such big material. So I don't think there's any areas that I'm particularly concerned about. And I'm going to say something really strange now. I think when we started making the show, the big question in my head was, am I making a show for white audiences, or am I making a show for Black audiences, right? And this kept twirling on in my head, and I couldn't work out why.
Yeah.
And then as we carried on the process, I think it is in the most positive way possible. It is a show for Black audiences, and white audiences and any other audiences are absolutely welcomed and will love the show just as much. But there are things in this show that speak to our experience exclusively, that people will watch it and just recognize their Black lives and their Black joys and their Black families. So it's not challenging white audiences in the way that hopefully will make them react negatively. If you thought, I mean, it's like you can come and enjoy it, but it is speaking to a particular experience and to a particular audience, and hopefully it's not centering that white experience too much.
But I wonder why you were having the conversation in your head about who you were writing for.
Because
is that in terms of getting bums on seats, or
no, that's in terms of I really hear the conversation about that is going on in the arts and generally about how much Black trauma stories we have out there.
Yeah.
I'm a writer that has been able to and felt the need to tell those stories, right? And someone has to do it. And it comes with a heavy, heavy burden. And it comes with a lot of responsibility and a lot of fear.
Yeah.
And I guess the reason why that question for me kept coming up was because I didn't want to, on this occasion, it wasn't about telling a Black trauma story. It was about saying, I see you, I see your Black families, I see your Black ancestors, I see your, and I just wanted to make sure that when we had Black audiences, they knew that was speaking to them, they knew that that was at them, you know, that, and I guess that big I see you energy was what inspired this play. And I didn't want that to be lost along the way. I didn't want to have to start educating white people about certain aspects. And so there are things in the play that are hard to hear, but they're hard to hear for Black people.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'm very intrigued now.
I know it's so hard to talk about this show because in one way, even if I gave you all the information, like all the details, you still wouldn't be prepared.
Okay.
Like, that's the truth.
Fair enough. So how was balancing being the writer and the co-director? Was that something that you insisted upon? How did that come about?
It was a really so I decided to become a director, and I made that decision sort of at the same time I made the decision to never direct my own work.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what it was about, but I sort of made that decision in myself that, and also because I love classics, like I love classic plays. So I was thinking, oh, you know, I'll get into directing those. And I'd assisted on The Caretaker by Harold Pinter. You know, I was like, oh, you know, I can direct those plays and write my own stuff, you know, and that was the very clear divide in my head. And then obviously you start to go, there's no way a play like this can be directed by a white director. And what do I do? You know, and I actually suggested loads of Black directors to her as co-director. And it was Katie, my co-director, who's like, what? Can I ask what the problem is here and why you're not Black directing this play with me yourself? You know the story inside out, like, and we need you in the room, like. And I was like, oh, you know, I'm not sure about this at all. I'd made this contract with myself, and obviously then, as you do, I had a session with my Black therapist, and she was like, pardon, you made what? I love it when therapists come for you, you know. It's like, it's always a particular kind of drag. It's like, which contract did you sign? What date did you sign it? And I was like, no, it's not a contract. It's you know, anyway. So I very quickly went back to Katie and went, of course I'm going to co-direct this show. And actually it's been a great experience, because I'm quite good at knowing when to be a writer in the room and when to be the director in the room. Do you know what I mean? Like I think I'm quite good at dividing them. It's just every so often you, as a writer, have to realize that you're having a wobbly because you're in the shoes as the writer right now, not as the director who has all, you know, will find a solution, will make it better. as a writer, you're the one wobbling, and so you take yourself out of the room for half an hour and have a word with yourself and come back in with your director hat on.
So does that mean you're not closed off to the idea of directing your own work in the future then?
You still have to convince me. It's so weird. I don't know what this is about, Sophia.
Yeah.
I genuinely have no idea what it's about for me. I think, yeah, I can't work it out. I genuinely can't. But I'm glad I just really ignored that nonsense with this show. I really needed to be in this show as a director, and I'm glad that I did that. And it might be that's the thing in terms of certain kind of work. I think when my work is formally, like, I like to play with form. I like to tell stories that sit somewhere between reality and magic. These are things that are features of my writing throughout my career, really. And that's sometimes been quite hard to explain and translate to someone else who's directing your work. And so I get that. I get why it might be easier for me to sometimes just go, let me just do it myself. But I'm also like, oh, really? Is that, I don't want to, I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So what can you say to any theatre goers who haven't ventured to the theatre yet, and are a bit apprehensive about, social distancing? Have you got anything to say to encourage those audience members?
Yeah, I mean, I know that at the moment, we certainly in terms of Paynes Plough and the Roundabout, we are still operating with the same levels of safety and care. There's a lot of stewards who assist the show to ensure that people get in safely and get out safely. Everything is cleaned, seats, everything in between every show. That's all been happening throughout the time we've been in Coventry. And to be honest, like, I'm still nervous about certain spaces. Do you see what I mean? Like, but at some point for me, we have been so isolated from each other for so long. And I think that when I realized that there was these opportunities, especially in theatre, you don't, obviously, when you get on a tube at the moment, you might not choose if someone like comes and sits next to you, but in the space that is a theatre, we can make those rules, and we can say, please put your mask on. And do you know what I mean? Like, we can do that. So in a way, it's a hard question to answer, because I hear the fears, but I also feel that there has been so much isolation in this time, and coming and watching a show and just taking yourself away from some of that. It's massively helped my mental health. Like, it's massively helped me going to see shows and sitting there and being like, okay, like, maybe everything will be all right. We just keep being careful, but keep coming back together, maybe everything will be all right. But it's hard. It's a hard time.
I think the first time I went, I was quite apprehensive, but once I got there, I was like, oh, I've missed it.
It's fun. Yeah, exactly. You just miss it. I don't know what your first show was, but one of the first shows I went back to the theatre for was And Breathe by Omi.
Oh, yeah.
And gosh, I like, it felt like I was taking this massive long breath out. Like, that's what it felt like that day. I was like, oh gosh, okay, So I can't reassure people, like, in the same way that people maybe couldn't reassure me before I went in. But there is something, especially with a show like this, there is something about that collective joy and that collective space that we shouldn't forget. We shouldn't forget how healing it is, because it is.
So congratulations on your appointment as Artistic Director of Teatr Fahadzi. What can we expect from you in that post?
Oh gosh, well, that's the other thing I'm busy doing at the moment. It's our 25th anniversary next year.
Brilliant.
So we have got like big plans. We're really hoping that at some point towards the end of the year, we'll be able to have, not this year, next year, a huge party to celebrate what we are and what we do. I'm currently, you know, it's really hard when you come into post as an artistic director because everyone's like, what are you programming? What are you programming? And you're like, there's so much work to do outside of the programming, you know, and, you know, in a way, the programming has to be led by the vision, and that vision takes a bit of time to know and to feel comfortable with. But what I do know, because we are in association company with Black Love, and one of the things I do know is that we are making theatre again, and that feels really exciting, and we'll continue to make theatre, and theatre that does centre that audience, that does try to say whatever ideas you have about our lives, we're going to question them, we're going to interrogate them. We're going to change not your view of us, but we're going to change always looking out and start just enjoying life. Do you know what I mean? Those are the stories I'm after. And supporting artists and supporting not just young artists, but also supporting established artists and making sure that they're seen, because so often I know from experience, you get to a certain point in your career as a Black artist or as a Black playwright, and everyone sort of expects you to, oh, you've done enough now, like, can you just stop so that younger people can take your place? Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, hold on, why is it okay for white male writers to go until they're 70? But I've got to 40 something, and I, do you know what I mean? Like, there are buildings, there are theatre companies in this country who don't commission any Black writers over the age of 30, or even over the age of 25. And you go, well, what are you saying then? Like, there are some brilliant playwrights in this country who that should be a part of our canon, of our British theatre canon. Already. And you're telling them that they have no more stories to tell, you know, and it's got to stop.
I didn't realise that was a thing. I mean, I know for actors, as they get older, for some actors, they get less and less work. But I didn't know it was a thing for playwrights as well. That's like, it doesn't actually make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. You get, you know, what I've been describing to you is that it has taken a long time, longer than it takes, I guess, in some ways, white writers to find themselves in their own work, right? Because you spend so much of your career, especially early career, having to not internalize all these things about your stories not being universal, or how is a white person going to relate? How are they going to see themselves? How's this going to happen? How's the audience going to feel comfortable? What are we doing to educate the audience through your work? You're never just making work, you're making work to educate someone. I mean, I'm not, like, if I wanted to be a teacher, I'd happily go and be a teacher. I chose to be an artist. So why am I still working to educate someone? And so you get to a point where you stood up for yourself occasionally, you've made the work you want to make. You're you know, I always say, sometimes say, like, you're at your prime in your craft,
Yeah.
right? And you look around and you go, where are those writers right now?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with me. That was eye-opening, just because I just completely just not aware of what's going on. Obviously behind the scenes, I'm absorbing theatre, I'm not making theatre. But it is good to know that those challenges are out there as well, though. And hopefully we'll get to a place where we don't have to explain ourselves as Black people and why we're doing things that's away from the stereotypes that are expected of us. Moving on from being an artistic director, so I follow you on Instagram and your food posts are incredible. Are you actually a chef as well? I just need to know, just for me. Just tell me.
No, I'm really not a chef at all. I have been cooking since I was 9.
Okay.
So I'm, you know, when I said I had 3 brothers and a sister,
Yeah.
I was the eldest.
Right.
And so from a really young age, I was the person that was attempting to make chicken stew standing on a stool. I couldn't even see inside the pot, like try and do, you know. So my passion for food has been lifelong. And I think what's really interesting for me is that it just came a point in my life where I started to go, just as long as I'm feeding myself, I'm okay. Do you see what I mean? Like, and it became a self-care thing, because I think when you have kids as well, you have children, and
Yeah.
you know that you spend so long like them first, them first, them first, them first, them first, and you do, and you kind of in that space. And there just came a point where it's like, yeah, my daughter would go to bed and it's like, you know what, I'm just going to cook myself really nice pasta and a glass of red wine, and I'm going to sit like I'm, you know, fine dining.
I love it.
It just became a thing. And so I cook lavishly,
Yeah,
for myself. I buy myself, like, if I buy myself a £10 bottle of wine, I'm like, whoop, you know, check you out. And then I come home and I cook something nice and I sit and it's just a form of self-care. And I post it just to remind other women, particularly other Black women, like, spoil yourselves. There's nothing wrong with spoiling yourself once in a while. So I like to remind people that self-care like that is also something we can do.
Yeah, it definitely has inspired me. I mean, my plates don't look like your plates. Your plates look like they're from a restaurant, but I do like, it does inspire me. So thank you for those posts.
Oh no, thank you. I mean, I haven't actually, well, I've been in rehearsal and tech, but so I've just been eating whatever Marks and Sparks, like wraps, and my best friend at the moment. But yeah, I'll be back with a vengeance. Soon.
So my final question is, why should Afridiziak readers come and see Black Love, which is coming to a theatre near all of us at some point? Yeah.
I would say come and see Black Love, because you will leave with at least one of the songs in your head. Come and see Black Love, because every once in a while, I think that I get to make theatre that makes me tingle, and I hope that it will make people tingle. Come and see Black Love, because this is bigger than us. This is bigger than what I feel, what you need, what I need. And it's a tribute. It's a show that I've made as a tribute to those that have gone, to say, let's not forget that we're living this life, and it's important that once in a while we just celebrate who we are. So and yeah, I'll be surprised that when we get to Brixton that the audiences won't be as noisy as they started to be in Coventry. I was very surprised.
Oh, that's there's plenty of reasons for us to come and see it. So thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
No. Thank you so much for inviting me to chat with you. And yeah, I follow you on Insta, and you've just been, kind of doing an amazing job in keeping reviewing and reporting on Black theatre alive in this country, and you should be really proud, because I think lots of people have followed your lead, but Afridiziak was one of the first, and that's really important to acknowledge. So thank you.
That's so nice of you to say. Thank you. I will not
No
cry.
worries.
I will look forward to seeing Black Love in London.
Yeah, can't wait. Let me know when you're coming. But yeah,
can't wait for you to enjoy the tour.
Thank you. See you soon, Sophia. Bye.